Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. This week, we're talking about Slowmaxxing. So Keith, not to put you on the spot, have you heard of this one?
No, but it's just like the difference between California walking slow and New York. I got to get there. Tell me more, Jen.
Kind of. So
Okay.
we had protein maxing for a long time, which was the idea of, getting all the protein we can. I think we're still there. Looks maxing took on a wild turn of men like breaking their jaw so that it would be, more chiseled when it healed or whatever they were doing. I don't know. So looks maxing went to a dark place to me. Have you heard of that
Right.
one?
I have, or like even back to Gattaca, where you're getting taller through bone breaking
Right.
through your legs.
Yeah. Then I think we've seen or we're seeing a bit of this fiber maxing. Listen, I probably am one of the I've been talking about fiber since the dawn of time, and now everybody's taking my protein and fiber situation. Longtime listeners, protein and fiber at every meal makes you moving fat, no big deal. But so fiber is now having a moment because protein had a moment. So there's this, thing. Now we have this Slowmaxxing. And when I started to dig into this, I was like, wait a minute. We've been talking about this for years on this show. We just didn't give it a name.
Okay.
So we'll go through what it is, what it looks like, how to do it, and if we're jumping on board. So Slowmaxxing is essentially the antithesis or the opposite end of the spectrum of hustle culture. Like I was just interviewed on somebody else's podcast. It was like an entrepreneurship podcast. And, we were talking about this idea of like in hustle culture, it's the, sleep when you're dead, find more time in the day, do more, right? That mentality. This is the opposite. It is the opposite of optimizing. And it tends to be showing up, especially online, the irony here, go with me, as the antidote to internet brain rot. When like you're so in internet culture, they call it brain rot. Slowmaxxing is potentially the antidote to that. And I appreciate that I just said all the things that it's the opposite of, which doesn't actually tell us what it is. And I get that. So the way I can think about it is that Slowmaxxing helps us shift the emphasis from achievement and tackling a to-do list and to really focusing on presence, having time in our day, starting the morning with a quality, casual on-ramp. Some talk about it, like some describe it as like indulging or relishing in time spent doing like small everyday tasks in an effort to help us relax instead of having this pride around accomplishment and crossing things off the list. And for all of the type A people, I feel you, I am you, I know this is very difficult. I think what I like about it is that it's a bit of a shift in priorities. Or maybe the better way to say that is that Slowmaxxing pushes us to consider our priorities and whether how we're spending our time reflects those priorities. It is potentially one of our tools against burnout and overwhelm. And people have said that, adopting this approach or this idea helps with anxiety or overthinking, feeling emotions, as we talked about this week, instead of shutting down emotionally, helps with exhaustion, fatigue, sleep issues, headaches, digestive issues, getting sick often. So when adopting this, people tend to notice a difference. So what does it look like? Okay, going back to the original TikTok about it, when it went viral, which also I think was based on something else. But anyway, the TikTok, when it went viral, said, you need to be reading long, fat books. You need to be making 48-hour chocolate chip cookies. You need to spend hours watching wildlife. You need to be spending 15 minutes making your coffee. You need to breathe in and out. You need to be slow with like 8 million W's. And I will admit that hearing that sounds so frustrating to me. Like,
Yeah, you got how many times is it baked over as a 48-hour chocolate chip cookie? Oh my
right, I don't know.
God.
And like 15 minutes to make coffee? That sounds excruciating.
Yeah.
Like, so I get it. I think some examples that are maybe more digestible for me and probably for you, creating a schedule that has buffers and downtime.
Yep.
Starting the day slowly. We talked about this in our brain fog episode, but the idea of single tasking.
Right.
Instead of multitasking, we single task, we focus, we stay present, we quiet all the other things for a few minutes. So, how can we do this? If we want to play with this idea of slow maxing, maybe we don't have to max it, but we can just add some of this slow into our days. So maybe you're blocking time in your calendar for a break, and holding to it might be the other side of this. Because the other day I put a walk in my calendar and then it didn't happen at all. Maybe it's more of saying to yourself, I no longer do back-to-back meetings or appointments.
Like a therapist, they buffer.
Right. A little bit of buffer. I think there's also a piece of stepping back and looking at your day big picture, or having a perspective on the whole day and where you could find time. I think that also helps us see what's really an emergency, what really requires our time, effort, and energy that moment or that day, versus this isn't an emergency. This email can get a reply in an hour. I can go for a walk right now. Or I can take 10 minutes to just do nothing. And really do nothing, not doom scroll. Some talk about blocking time to breathe. I would say let's put maybe a couple minutes, a couple times a day in the calendar that are nothingness breaks, or a stretch break, or a breathe break. I know one company, I do some business coaching with them, for them, and they start all of their meetings 5 minutes after, whatever the time is. So if it's at 11, the actual content is starting at 11:05. The first 5 minutes is for people to turn on the Zoom. They play music. Let's get settled. Let's tidy up the things. Maybe you want to stand up and stretch, but you have a couple minutes. And they do that as an organization at every meeting. It could be 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be 5.
Right.
I would recommend going back to our episodes with Megan Sumrall and Anna Dearman-Kornick. Those were a lot about like time management and thinking about how we plan our day. For me, ditching the to-do list has been an incredible piece of this. Because instead of putting something on a to-do list, it ends up in my calendar with a block of time. And again, like now in the evenings, I have more time. I might move something to another day because either something came up, or I'm like, this is not an emergency today. This deadline is a few days out. I can take this chunk of time to minimize the overwhelm, to take a break, to slow max, dare I say. Consider also your morning routine. So again, we have an episode about morning routines. Could you not rush to the phone and take a couple deep breaths? We did a nutrition nugget on Sunobi breathing. Maybe check in with that one and start your day with that kind of breathing. Or maybe you do that before you eat. The idea of 15 minutes to make your coffee is borderline sociopathic to me. And again, I say that with awe and envy for the people who can do that. So if we start to take the idea of what they're saying there, which is noticing the little things, finding something special or interesting about the mundane, then to me, that might look like noticing the mug you're using when you fill up your coffee and reminding yourself of like where you got that mug. If it's like from a city or reminds you of something or someone gave it to you, or maybe you just drink your coffee a little slower while looking out the window, taking a minute. Maybe you light a candle. Maybe you just sit in the sun for 5 minutes and people watch or nature watch and not spend time with our head in the screen. Give yourself extra time to get somewhere. Then that commute becomes leisurely and you have a moment to notice what they call the glimmers, which is like the opposite of triggers. So notice the little things. Doing a gratitude journal for me before bed changed that completely. I started to notice the little glimmers in every day.
Yeah. So you look for them. You're looking for positives instead of being always negative.
Exactly. Like, do we notice that a stranger smiled? Do we notice, how the sun is reflecting off the water? Watching the birds sort of, I don't know, walk around, hop around, whatever. I'm thinking of things I see in New York City that qualify as nature.
Glimmers.
Yeah. Glimmers. I think it's just this idea of like intentionally looking for the small moments that can bring us little pieces of joy and awareness and presence. And by that token, it probably means, as you said before, putting the phone down, reducing that screen time. Going for a walk without your device or listening to something is something that my meditation coach has been working on with me for going on like 7 years now. We're all a work in progress. But could we do an activity without our phone? If you see flowers, what if you smelled them? It's the little things. I also think consider activities that you'd want to do that would feel restorative to you. We did an episode, 7 Types of Rest. Maybe that gives you some ideas of things, or maybe where you need or would feel supported by a different kind of activity. And so all in with Slowmaxxing, are we jumping on this bandwagon? I say yes, and this is a giant challenge for me. And like I said, I've been working on this stuff for 7+ years, especially since leaving my full-time job in hedge funds. And we keep playing and we keep working on it. And there are things in here that I do without thinking about it. And then there are certain things that we talked about that for me to do would require a lot of effort and energy. And I think there's value in doing that.
Right.
What do you think?
And you don't need to be a different person. You can just incorporate into your mix, right? Like you can take a slow morning and then get to the to-do list or calendar. And then, like you said, move something in your calendar, which shows like you schedule it, but you can be flexible to adjust.
Exactly. It's more of what we talked about in this week's episode of like finding that gray area, that middle ground between the black and the white. Like, I think the idea of Slowmaxxing is as much black and white as hustle culture is like those two extremes. So like we can find somewhere in the middle. I will say that over the years of playing with some of this, not knowing that it's called Slowmaxxing, I feel better. I feel calmer. I am happier. I think I'm a kinder human. I mean, I am better able to handle the things that come at me. Like my capacity is higher. And I even notice it. Like the other piece to me that's really been meaningful is the idea of priorities. If we allow this to help us reconsider our priorities and how we spend our time in alignment with those priorities, that shows up for me every day. And what I mean by that is, we're sitting here recording, my phone has been going off, and I will look at who they are and prioritize the order that I call them back. Not to say that certain people aren't important, but to say my parents are going to be a greater priority most of the time than the client who's calling to ask about reading a label. Like we can read that label in 10 minutes. I want to make sure that my family is okay. So I think that piece of prioritizing and noticing where I spend my time and how I spend my energy, even whose incoming call can interrupt what I'm doing, that's been really powerful. And I think that's connected to this Slowmaxxing thing.
Definitely. Prioritizing, I don't know if you'd call it leveling, but like that is inherent in the word prioritizing. But you're also saying that I like the way that you're saying play, because play like means you're trying things out. And I think you've been doing the new term Slowmaxxing because you're talking about your whole life, you need a vacation to reset. It's kind of like Slowmaxxing. If you're always on vacation, you're always Slowmaxxing, you're never going to get shit done. But you need it in order to reset. And then you're prioritizing, like you're flexibly saying, maybe I have a slow morning, but then or I notice the good things and gratitudes for the day, but you still get things done in between. So it's like that balance.
Exactly. And I think it's finding what each of our Slowmaxxing looks like. And I think there's real awareness to say, like, I don't need to hustle and push every moment of every day. I don't need to live a life that I can't take a vacation from. There's also that other idea of, like, I don't know if you've heard people say this, of create a life that you feel like you don't need a vacation from.
Sam Adams, yeah.
Right? And yes, and are we comfortable with the nothing too?
Maybe that's the human part. You have the variability and let the AI machines take care of the constant maxing, optimizing.
Exactly. So maybe this is the summer of Slowmaxxing? ? I'd be curious to see what happens. Yeah, exactly. Let's play. I love it. All right, friends. As always, I'm Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. Hearing from you is literally the highlight of my day. Your questions, your ideas, your takeaways. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your coach. Keith, thank you again for joining me this week. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Jen.
Absolutely. And of course, friends, if you are not already, I invite you to the Happy Healthy Hub. You'll go to asaladwithasideofries.com/membership. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and above all, your health. On top of access to the community board where we can interact, ask and answer questions, and so much more, you get discounts, curated content, and then, of course, this week's recipe for the 15-minute pesto shrimp. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.